o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks everybody for joining us today. You are here for the public meeting, the virtual public meeting about a roundabout that we're going to construct at the intersection of Zeeb Road and Liberty Road in Scio Township. My name is Emily Kaiser and I'm the communications manager at the Road Commission, and I'll be the meeting host today. I am joined by a few people here, a few experts. And so today's meeting agenda is I'm going to go over a few housekeeping items, and then I will turn it over to our project managers for a presentation about the project plans. And then we will open it up to Q&A at the end of that. So our project managers for today are Elena, and you can see her contact information here. You don't have to write it down right now though. We will have it a couple times throughout the presentation, and we'll show you how you can access her contact information online as well. So we've got Elena, and then we also have Brent, who is our Assistant Director of Engineering, and he is here to help present as well. Again, we'll provide his contact information a couple times. So just from a housekeeping perspective, there are a few things I want to just make sure everybody's aware of. Right now we are recording the audio and video for this meeting, and our plan will be to post the recording to wcroads.org. I'll show you where we'll post it. It'll also be on our YouTube channel, hopefully this afternoon or tomorrow. At the end of our presentation, we'll ask you to if you have any questions, you can ask those in our Q&A period. And when we get to that part, we'll provide instructions as to how you can do that. But you can ask questions either by virtually raising your hand or by, from your computer or your phone. Or as you can see on this slide, we've also got chat enabled. So if you want to ask me as the host a question in chat, I'll be sure that we address that in the Q&A as well. So whether you want to do a verbal question or a chat question, either one works, and we'll try to get to as many questions as we can today. All right. With that, I will turn it over to Elena.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining our meeting today. I would like us to start with the overview location area map for this project. Intersection Zeeb and Liberty provides access to major routes, provides access to Ann Arbor, Dexter, Wagner Road, Jackson Road with all the shopping, restaurants, and businesses, and it provides access to I-94 and M14. So it's very important intersection in our system, and it's getting very busy. We have a close-up for this intersection. Currently, it has 3 paved legs, and 1 leg is unpaved on the west side. It's a gravel road. And when we look at the ground, right now it's a 4-way control stop with a flashing beacon to warn people of that stop signs, that stop is required. As we can see even here, that location is busy and those volumes are increasing. When we talk about volumes, they continue to increase. Location is within Scio Township, and as I mentioned, it's a 4-way stop. We see congestion during peak hours, and we also see unbalanced volumes. We'll talk about it a little bit later, what it is, but some locations we kind of see approximately the same volumes on each legs. This location is different. There are some movements are very heavy, with the rest of them are not so heavy. We'll talk about it later. In terms of volumes, the ADT, or average daily traffic volumes, it's 24-hour volume traffics are very high. So we have thousands of vehicles traveling through that intersection every day. So these are 24-hour volumes. So Zeeb Road has heavier traffic, but Liberty also, we see 5,000 vehicles on the east leg of that intersection. So the volumes continue to grow, and with that, we see that this intersection needs to be improved. We conducted a signal warrant analysis. That's something we do routinely for our intersections of primary roads that currently have stop control, 2-way or 4-way stop control. So we visit those intersections and we study, look at the volumes, delay, and crash history. We see if warrants are met for traffic signal, if they're met, at what degree. and we go back every few years to see how that situation's development, if it's the same or it's the need for improvement is increasing. So we studied the intersection of Zeeb and Liberty. We ran warrants, we looked at the volumes and all the other criteria, and we saw that even now, currently, the traffic warrant signals are met. Unfortunately, when we see those intersections, when those warrants are met, we can't go out and install an improvement next day, right? We need to plan. We need to think about funding, how to fund the projects, and typically those improvements are not cheap, significant expense. We need to develop a strategy or plan what treatment specific location will get. Some locations will benefit from traffic signal the most. Some other locations more fitted for a roundabout. So we need to consider each location because each location is unique. For Zeeb and Liberty intersection, we have also some upcoming projects that will increase the traffic. It will impact this intersection. We have a new residential development that is proposed to connect to Liberty Road on the east leg. We're also going to pave Zeeb Road to the south. This is the last segment that will connect Pleasant Lake Road to Ellsworth Road, and then provide completely paved route for traffic to access Ann Arbor, Dexter, provide route, north-south route to access I-94 and M14. So we definitely expect increase of traffic due to those upcoming projects. When we think about the intersection improvement or strategy or what improvement to implement, intersection control considerations, we think about speeds and safety or conflict points, traffic flow, the movements, the volumes we have, what patterns we have, and we also think about delay. This picture shows conflict points in comparison. On the left, we have a traffic signal, and on the right, we have a roundabout. With the traffic signal, with potential movements are through, left turn, right turn, and those movements are allowed on all four legs. You end up with a potential of 32 conflict points. These are shown, and some of these conflict points are considered high risk. You have potential of angle crash or head-on left turn crash. This often result in serious injuries. With the roundabout option, some of these conflict points, or a lot of these conflict points, are taken out. They just don't exist. We have a total of 8 conflict points, and these are low speed and typically don't result in any serious injuries. I'm sorry. So with those two options, when you compare conflict points, you compare 32 potential conflict points with 8. So this is a great benefit of traffic circles, roundabouts, when you compare them to traffic signal, traditional traffic signal. I mentioned the unbalanced volumes at this intersection, and we think about these conflict points I just talked about. Here we emphasize in the volumes. We have unbalanced volumes, very heavy southbound left off Zeeb Road. We have heavy westbound right off Liberty Road. Both these heavy movements are in conflict with the northbound traffic. That northbound traffic have high percentage of heavy vehicles or trucks. So when we were analyzing the volumes and choosing strategy for this location, we were very concerned about this potential situation with the volumes and high-speed traffic with trucks presented and at a high percentage that typically. And we were considering all that. We looked at the traffic signal option for this location. We sketched it up, and for this location, traffic signal will not be just some poles and equipment. We typically provide a left turn lanes. So at this location, we would be constructing left turn lanes on 3 legs out of 4. So it will be still major construction, there's some curb installation, and only after that we'll be able to install poles and traffic signal equipment. So we sketched it out, we considered that option, but because of the volumes, those turning movements, because of the present high percentage of heavy vehicles and the speeds, all that considered, we thought that it's not probably the best option for this location, because it also might it would increase some crashes, such as rear end crashes. And overall, we came up with the preferred option for this location, which is a roundabout. Roundabout, it's self-congestion issue, but we already seen it is going to grow with increased traffic. It promotes safety and also keeps speeds low. Our concern with the traditional traffic signal was if that truck might think, oh, I should be able to make that light, or maybe I'll go on yellow, or maybe I even run that, red light with high turning movements. That crash is just was a big concern. That type of crash. With the roundabout, we see that you have to slow down. The roundabout, you might not have to stop, but you have to slow down to proceed. And it was a great point for us to go with this option for this specific location. This is our design. We're still working on details. We have some driveways in the area that will provide full access to. This roundabout is very similar to Wagner at Scio Church roundabout, and very similar to Ann Arbor Saline at Textile roundabout. This one has also 1 leg is unpaved with similar volume, very similar setting. We're working on design right now. We have some details to figure out, but this is a preferred option that we're moving forward with. Our schedule is first part of it is March, tree removal. Due to migratory bats, we have to remove trees until end of the March. So we are identifying the trees already, and we know which ones will have to be removed to accommodate the design and drainage. So this is first part of the project. We're also working with the utilities to identify the conflicts, and then it will be Zeeb Road Phase 2 construction, which I described, paving Zeeb Road between Ellsworth and Pleasant Lake Road. And for intersection work for the roundabout, it's planned for late summer. So our plan will be installing signal lane roundabout. It will come in with the pavement, permanent signs, pavement markings, and also will be some lighting installation for the roundabout. So we'll start with the pavement removal. Then we'll set the forms for the splitter islands and center islands. The next step, we will pour the concrete for the islands and then wait until they gain sufficient strength. And we will fill the gaps with the stamped concrete. It's a red color to emphasize the islands, to emphasize the roundabout. So the center island also will be concrete. There will be no landscaping to make sure that we have a side distance for all approaches, and just to help with the long-term maintenance. We will pave the road, install permanent signs, and then we will install pavement markings. So the pavement markings will be yield and error pavement markings. It will be a set of standard pavement markings. You see the street lights here as well. And for the construction, the road will be closed for 6 to 8 weeks. Will be no through traffic allowed, no pedestrian traffic. We will, I think this year, making sure install more barricades to prevent any damage, because we don't want that concrete to be damaged where we would have to remove and replace and extend that closure to correct any damage. So we definitely want to respect, we want the residents to be patient with us, but to let us complete the work, and we'll be making sure that proper signage is installed for all the traveling public to follow the detours. So this is a detour. It will be posted using Scio Church Road, Wagner Road, Jackson Road, and Parker Road. All the local traffic for the residents, who live right there, will be maintained, but these are the tours for the traveling public to follow. We will be very busy. There's a lot of projects planned for this area. We will have Wagner Road safety project that will be replacement culverts south of Liberty. That work is planned for June, and that segment of the road will be closed. We have Wagner at Waters intersection improvement. There will be installation of left turn lanes and a flashing beacon. So that work is planned to start after July 5th. So that intersection will be closed. Then I also, as I mentioned, we have Zeeb Road paving. So that road will be closed and will be detours. So we'll work our best to coordinate all these efforts to make sure the detours are appropriate, and try our best to not overlap the detours. So try to make sure we complete our work as scheduled in providing efficient routes for the traveling public. For mail delivery, pickup trash, so all these services will be maintained, and if there are any lawn damage, that will be restored and is part of the project as well. And just to remind about roundabouts, so you don't have to stop, but you should slow down, look to your left, and when traffic is when no traffic is present, proceed slowly. And this is the contact information.
Yeah, thanks, Elena. So as Elena mentioned, that is kind of an overview of what the project's going to look like. If you want to find out more, I put a link. I'll put one again in the chat shortly, but there's a link to the project page. I'm going to show you right now of how you can find that on the website. And then you've also got Elena's contact information right here. So let me pause my screen share here for a second, and I will show you how to access this information. So if you go to our website, which is wcroads.org, we have a lot of, I'm biased because I help manage it, but we have a lot of great information out there for you to find out information about road work or anything road related you may have questions about. Our seasonal weight restrictions did go into effect this morning, so we've got this banner right across here. But what I want to show you today is about our current projects. So we've got this current projects map right on our website under this road work and construction. And here you can see, Elena mentioned we've got a very busy construction season planned for 2021. And you can see, we can zoom in of the area close to this project, but you can see all these different segments or different projects that we've got coming up just in 2021. So each of these segments have, these road segments have a page associated with it. So if we find our Liberty at Zeeb Road page, you can find, and again, I'll include a link to this in the chat after I finish this demonstration, but you can find this web page here. It's got some basic information. This is where I will add the meeting recording. We'll also put an FAQ up here in the next day or so as well. But you can find project updates here. Elena's contact information is here as well. If you would like to receive project email updates about this, we will start doing updates throughout construction. And we'll provide photos and just let you know like the progress that we're making. So you can subscribe to receive those updates by clicking this button right here. But then we'll post the same update right here to the website. So if you don't want the email update, you can always just visit this website. We'll share it in on social media as well. But if you wanted to receive email updates, you would just click the subscribe to road updates. And then you fill out your information. We do a lot of other email alerts as well. So if you're interested in other road work going on in Scio Township or Lodi Township, wherever you may reside, you can receive updates just on the township that you want. And then we've got these advisories by the project. So you would want to subscribe to receive these for the intersection of Zeeb and Liberty Road if you're interested in these project updates. So we try to, again, put a lot of information out there. We will start to put updates about this project as we get closer. As they start to get closer to that closure, that will go up here. So there's again, a lot of information on there to share with you as the public. So let me get back to our slides here. I know we've got some good questions. So one second here. Okay. So with that, we will move into the Q&A portion of the meeting here today. We've got a couple questions in chat and we will make sure that we get to these, but if you would like to ask a verbal question, you can do so if you're joining us from your computer or smartphone. We'd ask that you raise your hand virtually. And so you can do that by clicking the participants button and then the raise hand button. So that participants button should be either at the top of your screen. Since I'm screen sharing, you may have to hover over the top, or it's at the bottom. It depends on what computer you're accessing this with. And then just raise that hand, and then we will unmute people one at a time with a raised hand. If you are joining us from your touch-tone phone today, you can raise your hand virtually by dialing *9 to notify us that you'd like to ask a question. And again, you can always ask a question in chat. I know we've got a few here already, so we can start with those. But if you want to raise your hand, now is the time. Okay, looks like we have our first question with a raised hand. So we'll kind of go back and forth between raised hand and chat. So we've got Paul first, username of Paul. You should be able to unmute yourself, Paul.
Yeah,
yep,
can
go
hear me?
ahead. We can, yeah, go ahead with your question.
So I'm a resident that lives about 0.8 miles west of Zeeb Road in a private development on Stag's Leap Lane. And west of us on Zeeb Road, there's a low area that frequently is covered with water over the road. There's a sign announcing it. Happens year round, happens more in spring, but it can happen anytime after a rain where the road is not passable. So that essentially traps all of the residents between Zeeb Road and the water over the road, which is about a mile stretch. So it traps all of us residents. So not only wouldn't we be able to get mail and trash pickup, but if there were an emergency, we can't get out to get to the hospital. If our house burned down, the fire department couldn't get there. So how is that being handled?
I can answer that.
Right, you want to help us out with this one?
Yeah, I can.
Okay,
yeah.
Thanks. Thanks for your question, Paul.
Yeah. So fortunately, this project is going to be late summer. So the likelihood of one of those flooding events is lower. Certainly, we would monitor the area, and if there's issues, then we can certainly make it so that there's ability for residents to get through the project to their residents. So we'll monitor that. We'll be in touch with those that may be affected. But like I said, typically in that time of the year, it's very the percentage is very low on those flooding events, which is good.
Okay, thanks, Brent. Yeah, and Paul, just know that we work very closely with our operations department. There's a number of them on this call right now listening in. So that is definitely something that we will coordinate, and hopefully it doesn't happen, but it is something that we are well aware of that area, and we will certainly be monitoring it and coordinating together. So, okay, let's answer a chat question, and then we'll get to another person with a raised hand. So the first question that came in from chat came from Kim, and her question is, how will you enforce the no heavy truck issue? The double loaded trucks continue to use Liberty to get to Crawl on Wagner. Brent, Elena, any?
Yeah.
Do we need to follow?
Yeah, I'll have to. I'm trying to think if these are restricted routes. I don't believe. I think they can, achieve normal loading. Certainly the detour routes that we have, the one that's on Parker Road, that's mainly for those that are on the west leg. So they, if there's deliveries, they certainly will have to use that Parker Road, and we would lift that restriction. As far as Scio Church Road, again, we would, during construction, we would lift any type of restriction just during that construction time frame.
And then it would go back into place once construction is over, if there's an existing restriction. Okay.
Right.
Okay. So let's see. Let's go to our next question here with a raised hand. Andy, you should be able to unmute yourself. Andy Hood.
Yeah, hi there. Actually, very good. No
Hi.
one ever gets my name right. Andy Hood.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Andy Hood, Scio Township Fire Chief, and I kind of wanted to echo Paul's comments. If we were to have a fire or another emergency in that stretch between where the roadway floods and Zeeb Road, it's going to be pretty difficult for us to access. Obviously, we need close communication, and there's no hydrants in that area as well. So if we were to have a fire, we'd be bringing probably 6 to 8 fire engines down there and shuttling water into that area. So I think Paul did a pretty good job of describing the issue we have in that area, but I definitely want to make sure that we're kept in the loop on that and that we do have access for emergency vehicles in that area.
Yeah, you certainly emergency vehicles would be allowed through the site if needed, and our construction staff do an excellent job communicating and working with those folks if there's some incident.
Yeah,
Great,
luckily this is not a, thank you. Luckily this is not a bridge replacement project where we have nothing for you to travel over, but we do really need to make sure people stay out of the work zone unless there's very limited emergency situations that we've been discussing. We had a number of projects last year in the 2020 construction season that were delayed, or there were cost additions to it because we had people violating the work zone and ruining fresh concrete and putting our employees and themselves at risk. So this is a work zone, this is a closure. And so we will work through those very limited emergency situations, but for everybody else, this closure applies to you. And we saw a lot of pedestrians, a lot of bicyclists in the last year really feel like those road closure signs don't apply to them. And we really need to stress the fact that it does for your safety and also for the safety of our employees. So, okay, let's go to another chat question and then we'll go back. We've got a couple more raised hands. So, all right, so this is a question in chat from Linda. And her question is, has the ability of neighboring driveways and streets to safely egress been evaluated? Her concern is that due to the current traffic, it's often hard to pull out. And right now it's hard to pull out. And then if speeds are increasing because there is not a four-way stop there, what's that going to mean for her or for other residents or other of those roads along that section?
If we talk about polo fields, there is to turn in, there are left turn lanes already. That's in terms of settings for subdivision access, it's good. Not every location will have that. To pull out, we sometimes we get a request to look at the volumes at the entrances to the subdivisions, but they don't, there's no volumes to warrant any like a traffic control in terms of signal. So we believe that it's safe access if we're talking about Polo Field Drive at Zeeb Road, but we can look closer. But there is
Elena, for like private driveways, I mean, I think the important thing too, and correct me but roundabouts, it's not a four-way stop, but roundabouts really do reduce the speed a lot versus what a traffic signal would be. So for somebody using their driveway, just pulling out onto Zeeb or pulling out onto Liberty, those speeds will still be much lower than if we were to put a traffic signal at this intersection, correct?
Definitely, yes, because that was our consideration. We were looking at the options. The Zeeb Road is a high-speed road. It's 55 unposted. It was definitely one of our major concerns with the traffic volumes and speeds, and definitely a roundabout option. The benefit of it is that you have to slow down, and it's definitely making it a safer option compared to traffic signal.
Okay. And we have a similar or same question or another question from the same person. And I think we already answered this, but just to reiterate, the question is about if this roundabout is going to be similar size to the one on Wagner Road. I'm assuming Scio Church and Wagner. And they just made a comment about that trucks have a difficult time navigating the curve, and they often are on that curb, which I think it's important to know. We can go back to the pictures, but that curb is actually a truck apron. So it is designed so that larger vehicles like trucks, like our own snowplows, like school buses, those longer vehicles can go up on that curb. And so it's actually designed to be a truck apron. Elena, Brent, anything you want to add to that?
No, yeah, you described it properly. Yeah, those are truck aprons.
Okay. Yeah. And this roundabout will be similar in size to Scio Church and Wagner, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's go back to, we've got another person with a raised hand. So it looks like Kim is next on my list. Kim Chaney.
Yes. Hi. Thank you.
Hi.
I was the one that put the first one in the chat, but maybe I didn't articulate my issue. So I live directly off of Liberty at the corner of Zeeb, and the double wide heavy gravel trucks are not supposed to come down Liberty, but they do. They're supposed to take Zeeb up, over to Scio Church and then hit it that way. So with putting a roundabout here right now, there are signs posted that say no trucks, like the huge ones like that. But with the roundabout, are there going to be proper signage to prohibit them from tearing this road up with their heavy trucks, the gravel haulers?
Okay. Thanks for clarifying, Kim. What, Brent, you want to address that?
Yeah, the current restrictions are not going to be eliminated. So they'll be properly signed to inform those drivers. And we work with a lot of those facilities, and they're professional drivers. We provide a truck map, so they should be aware of those restrictions. And we'll continue to educate and inform them. And like I said, they'll be properly posted.
Okay, thanks, Brent. Okay, let's go back to a chat question. Let's see. This is a similar question to what we just talked about. So Anne is wondering if we've met with truck haulers to see how they use the roundabout, the big gravel trucks. And so again, that truck apron, Brent, Elena, I don't know if you want to add to that, but that truck apron is designed for them to go on it.
Yeah. And we use it, we did the design, we looked at different, designs and curves for a specific truck, design vehicle. So that is part of the design, and it was addressed, and there's they can go over that apron to make their turn or movement. So the trucks are considered when we're designing the roundabouts.
Okay, great. Let's see. I've got another person with a raised hand. Paula, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead with your question.
Okay. Couple questions. Well, I was almost killed over there by Myers. Somebody coming directly across from Chase Road. And it was nice to see that we finally got a light, even though we had a death in the meantime. And I think it was last week we had a fairly bad accident. I want to know when that light is going to be turned on.
That light at Zeeb Road near Meyer?
Yes, it's a very extremely dangerous thing. I live right off of Zeeb. My car was totaled. I was in the ICU. I still have a messed up shoulder. No, I didn't sue anyone. Talked to Myers. Actually, the road commission was very nice. Said they had a study for 3 years saying they needed a light there and that they couldn't afford it, and that Myers should do it now with the building of all these outlots. I had recently called to ask that question about when the light would be turned on, but also, and it kind of feeds into the other questions, is that the speed, and I used to live at a Miller and Wagner area, I've been here for 17 years now, and the speed is way too high for the amount of traffic. And I was told, oh, that's a whole nother long process. And, with the car wash there, which I'm not anti-business or them building along there, but it's also extremely icy because a lot of cars are done there. And that patch gets, even if they salt, is like an ice skating rink. And I don't understand why it's so hard to change the speed limit, especially now if we're gonna have a roundabout.
Okay, well, those are great, great questions, Paula. We'll address them. Brent, Elena, who wants to go first?
I can answer, or
But do you have a timeline for the signal, Brent?
I don't. It's we're waiting on DTE. DTE needs to provide power to energize the signal. So they've been in contact with them. We certainly can reach out. We can take your information, and Paula, I believe I've talked to you a few times. And we can certainly try and get you that information. But we're waiting. That's what we're waiting on, is for that, for DTE to provide power to energize it. The other one is the speed limit. Speed limits are, just like you said, they are a whole other process. They are determined through the Michigan State Police. Michigan State Police set the speed limits. We work with them to provide them data to determine whether or not speed limits should be adjusted. They're based on the 85th percentile speed. And so we collect that data, and that's what 85% of the people drive at or below. So that process needs to be unanimously determined through the Michigan State Police, our office, and the township. So if none of those agree, then the speed limit remains as is. And we, like I said, we work very closely with the Michigan State Police, and we provide the necessary data to support whether or not a speed limit should be modified. And we can certainly talk further with you about that, not to get off the track on this public meeting regarding Liberty and Zeeb.
Okay, thanks, Brent. All right, so we've got a bunch more questions in chat, so we'll keep working our way through these. So one of the questions is about the main detour. What's the main detour route for gravel haulers? So let me go back to that slide and where we showed the detour map. So this is the detour map. So it does involve Scio Church, Wagner, Parker. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about the detour?
I mean, detour for them, they will have to follow this detour. And if there are like no truck routes right now, we will have to lift that stipulation, temporary to accommodate for that. But this is detour for everyone.
Yeah, so when we make a detour, we sign it for all the types of vehicles, right? We know that local traffic will find other ways, but the posted detour is the main detour, the one that we publicize, and that things like a gravel hauler would need to use to get around this project, correct? Okay, and so then there's a question about will Scio Church be repaved after the project? I don't believe we have any plans this year to resurface Scio Church Road. It's certainly something that we can look at, but it's not something that's on the list for this year. We have a question here from Carol and Dave, is how much of Liberty westbound will be paved? So let's go back to the roundabout overview. Elena, do you want to talk a little bit about the project limits?
Well, pretty much this shows the paving, the darker HMA. So pretty much I think it's about 200-300 feet to the west.
Okay, just to right after that first driveway on the north side, right? Yep. Okay.
Yeah. And north and south is pretty much where the picture, the view ends. That's the limits of paving.
Okay. Okay.
And north.
Okay. And then we had another question about the detour. So if we did talk about the detour, Ron's wondering, what are the specific details and enforcement and to make sure that traffic is honoring those routes. So Elena, do you want to talk a little bit about what that means with enforcement? And we've got another question here about, how to prevent people from going through like polo fields and other neighborhoods. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
So I know for the polo fields, we got the question from the homeowners association, and we will be put in the signs that local traffic only for those entrances. There are 2 entrances off Liberty Road, and there's 1 entrance at Polofield Drive of Zeeb Road. So already we talked about it. That's something we will be accommodating. The Sheriff's Department will be aware of for the project. We cannot guarantee their presence, but we definitely, they will be aware of this construction going on as well.
Yeah, and I think that, just like with any of our projects, if you're seeing unsafe driving behavior, that is an enforcement issue. And so that's something where you need to notify law enforcement. But like Elena said, we will have signs out there to help for the posted detour and to help that neighborhood specifically.
Emily, can I just elaborate
absolutely,
on?
Yeah.
So the signs that we posted for the subdivision, those are public roads. So the people will still be able to utilize those. We're providing those to try and reduce some of that, but they unfortunately are not an enforceable sign. But they are there to help deter people from using those local roads. But they are public roads.
Thanks, Brent. That's an important thing to keep in mind. It looks like we've got a raised hand from Ron, and Ron was asking about the detour. So let's go to Ron and see if he had more questions. Ron, you should be able to unmute. Ron V.
Yep, that's me.
Okay, go ahead.
What I'm concerned about is I do actually live in the Polo Fields. So, Polo Fields Drive, of course, has speed calming devices installed. I specifically live on Fairway Park, which is going to parallel Zeeb Road, and that is going to be an obvious through route for people. And that road has no speed calming devices. So I'm very concerned with the thousands of cars, based on your traffic study, that may be coming across that road now.
Okay, thanks for your question, Ron. Brent, do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, we're placing those signs to hopefully deter traffic. Certainly, if you see activity that somebody is violating speed or what have you, certainly can call the Sheriff's Department. We'll be in contact with them. It would help them, knowing the time of day, and we can certainly, like we said, we'll work with them, but all we can do is monitor and try to adjust when the time comes.
I just wanted to emphasize that the detour will be posted ways away from, from the polo fields or that intersection. So if you look in the detours route, it will be stating, that road is closed. And so it's, half mile away from the intersection. So that's where they posted, and it's in all directions. So I believe a lot of the traveling public will be aware of the construction and will be using those detours. So it will not be posted right at the subdivision. It will be posted ahead of time.
Right. There'll be a lot of advanced signage to warn of the road closure. Yeah, that's a great point. Thanks, Elena.
And Ron also brought up the speed humps. We will not be installing temporary speed humps within the neighborhood. That we don't have a solution for that, or one that's acceptable for our maintenance vehicles, one that is an approved device for our public roads.
And we were talking about speed limits being a whole nother thing. So our speed humps. So speed humps are a whole nother thing as well. Okay, let's keep working through these chat questions. We've got a question here from Dave about what are the implications for emergency services during the closure period? It's a long detour. Like, what does that mean for a delayed response in an emergency situation?
The emergency services will have access potentially even through our site if needed. So they'll still have the same access to the neighborhood on Polo Fields. If they need to get to the west leg of Liberty, and the route is through our project, certainly we would prefer that they follow if depending on the incident of the detour. But if they need to get through our site, we'll certainly work with them.
again, emergency services, not just anybody wanting to drive through because
Right.
they need to get, and we understand that this is going to be inconvenient. We understand that this is going to be a headache. We think it's worth it for the improvement that'll be there, but any type of construction is going to be a headache. And we, unfortunately, I wish we could, but we can't just fly in our improvements and to get them installed in a day. And so this is going to take time. We had a question here from Paul about what's the scheduled duration of the project from close to open. Elena, do you want to talk about that again?
So our closure between 6 and 8 weeks from the start. So if it's, start late summer, so month and a half, 2 months.
Okay, and our plan is to not start the closure here until the paving of Zeeb Road is completed. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and we'll talk a little bit more about that if you're interested in Zeeb Road paving. We've got another project meeting about that tomorrow. So we had another question here about the section of Liberty that floods. And I think we already talked about that a lot. We, we will continue to monitor. That's something that our operations department, who are on this call today, they are very familiar with, and we will coordinate. And if we need to do something different during that specific time frame, we certainly will. But it is something that we're hopefully going to avoid by it being in the fall. But we understand that there are certainly times where that floods, no matter the month. So we will continue to coordinate and stay on top of that. We will not trap you in your subdivision, we promise. All right, let's see. Here's a question from Carol, and she's asking, like, what prevents big trucks from just driving straight over the middle of the intersection in a roundabout?
I guess if a driver was compelled to do so, they could. But with it being a raised island, it really kind of discourages them from driving over that, and it would be pretty uncomfortable for that driver to do that. And we do have signage at the as you enter the roundabout that says you have to circulate. That's a regulatory sign. That's the white and with the black on white with the circular motion, and that's a regulatory sign. So they technically could be cited for not following the proper flow of the roundabout.
Okay, thanks, Brent. And two, I think it's important to note, so there's that truck apron, right, which is is designed for the rear of the truck to go over, and then there's a further raised center island portion, correct? Yeah, okay. All right, so a couple more questions here from chat. Here's a question from Kanda. She says that we have a commercial trash removal service versus residential, so they don't use the GFL. Do we need to let Waste Management know about the project? I think that's something that we'll take care of, right, Elena and Brent? Or if you want to, go ahead, Elena.
Go ahead.
Is it for polo fields? I mean, the polo fields traffic, they will be able, probably, maybe they have to adjust their route, but, there are plenty of access to the subdivision. Multiple access, so I'm not sure what route they take it now, but they definitely have options.
Okay, yeah, and they didn't say where this was located, but that's good to know. So trash service, yes, they may need to change the route a little bit, but you will still get your trash service. Let's see. Here's a question about enforcement of, I guess there's a new ordinance, a township ordinance that prohibits engine braking. And they're asking questions about enforcement of that, and how do we get more enforcement of that post this construction, and what's WCRC's involvement in something like that?
That's a township ordinance, and that would be enforced through the township. And I believe they have a contract with the Washtenaw County Sheriff, and so the sheriff would be the agency that would enforce that sign.
So WCRC doesn't have any mechanism to enforce something like that within our own jurisdiction as an agency.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So here's a question, and this one is a welcome question after the year we've all been through. The question is from Carol. Is the timing of this done such that it will be done by football season at U of M? Let's hope that it's a normal season in the fall.
I think, we have so many projects going on. We're in design, but we try to figure out the sequence between Zeeb paving, between Wagner Road closures. we would like to consider football and, you know, other things, but I think we have plenty with our own projects to maintain those routes and detours. So I think it's, for us, it's design and sequence. So we would like to pave Zeeb Road first and then work through the Wagner Road safety projects and have this addressed in fall.
So it still may be underway.
Late summer, you know, late
Yeah.
summer, you know, or the fall.
Okay. Yeah, it may still be underway then during football season. And like Elena said, it's a challenge that we have as being Michiganders, is that we have a very short construction season. So we have to try to fit a lot of work in. You saw those maps that we showed earlier. We have a lot of work to fit in a very short period of time. And so we do our best to try to coordinate around things like this, but it may still be under construction once football season begins. Let's all hope that we have a normal football season. That's something that to look forward to after the last 12 months or so. Okay, so here's a question about the detour again. So this is from Mona, and it says, since the detour for those of us east of water over the road, east on Liberty of the where there's water over the road, will require using all dirt roads, will they be maintained and graded around Zeeb Road? Just like, what's the maintenance plan for those types of roads? And I don't think any of our roads on the posted detour are unpaved. Well, maybe there is one.
Yeah, we would perform our normal maintenance of those roads. Certainly if there's issues, our operations staff do an excellent job of informing us of if there are issues, and we can certainly add those additional gradings on. But we'll continue to monitor it through the project, and but as of now, just our normal standard maintaining practices will be in place.
Okay. Let's see. Here is a question about cycling. So with the rise of cycling in the area, are there any allowances or safety measures incorporated into the roundabout for bicyclists or non-motorized?
So the non-motorized, they would have to follow. We're not going to provide separate facilities for them through the roundabout. If they're traveling on the roadway, in this case Zeeb Road, which doesn't have a designated bike lane, or Liberty Road, they would have to maintain, as far right as possible and even through the roundabout. So we're not going to be providing separate facilities for bicyclists. If they're on the roadway, then they would maintain on the roadway through the roundabout.
Okay, thanks, Brent. Let's see. So here's another question about how the roundabout's going to operate. So will there be signs when approaching the roundabout asking drivers or telling drivers to use a turn signal when they're going to be turning right or left, or not going straight through? She finds that very helpful. And I know we've done that on other intersections.
So these are a single lane roundabout. So there won't be any lane use signs to direct traffic because it's a single lane.
Will we have any, I think these are like signs, advanced signage ahead of getting to the roundabout, encouraging encouraging turn signals. We can certainly follow up.
Oh yeah, we can look to that. We've done that as a trial basis on some other roundabouts.
Yeah.
To see how effective they are. I know I certainly encourage that, and we can evaluate if that's something we want to add.
Okay, we're glad that you find it effective, because it is something that we, like Brent said, that we're kind of trialing out in other areas. So, okay, so here's a question from Lisa: is how many street lights will be installed? How much light pollution should we expect? So these are lights just illuminating the intersection itself, correct?
Yes, I think between 4 and 6, but we will be working with the DTE, so we will be, working, because they will be designing that and determining how many.
Okay, and the importance of illuminating the intersection is such that we need people to, especially with a new intersection, need them to be able to see the movements that are required, correct?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Let's see. So here's a question from Carolyn. And so her question is there a process to apply for exceptions to the detour? And does it apply to 8 homes close to the intersection on West Liberty? Brent, do you want to take this one?
I guess I would encourage them to communicate with Elena and our staff on what issues they have, and I just to learn more about what the issues they're.
Yeah, because generally we don't have a way to like ask for exceptions to the detour, right? Like I think that, you know, I know we are all guilty of it, but when you see that road closure sign, you think, ooh, I wonder if I can get around. I wonder if this applies to me. In almost every case, those road closure signs apply to you. And so that's the message that we'd like you to walk away with today, is that this road is going to be closed. We're going to do it as quickly as we can, but it is going to be closed. We will work with emergency services in those. We'll come up with a plan if there is flooding at Liberty. But in most cases, those road signs apply to you, and this road will be closed. This intersection will be closed while we do this. And we do that again to protect you as the motoring public, and also to protect our workers. We've had multiple incidents over the last year where people have entered work zones. We unfortunately had 2 fatalities, not of our workforce, but of contractors on I-94 this last year were killed while someone entered the work zone. So we really need to have people abide by these signs. So again, Carolyn, if you have a special circumstance that you want to learn more about, we've got Elena's contact information here. We'd encourage you to contact her and we can try to find out more information, but there isn't a process to apply for an exception to the detour. So it looks like I've got one more question here in chat. Again, Benjamin says he's very excited for this project, which is great. We are too. And he is just asking about preventing cut through traffic into the Polo Fields neighborhood. And I know we've talked a lot about that. And so those are public roads. So we're going to have signs out, Elena, Brent, we're going to have signs that say local traffic only, but those are only advisory signs asking people to use it. And we'll also have posted detour, but the roads through Polo Fields are public roads. So they are, like, people are allowed to use them. They need to follow all the rules and all the laws applicable to that. But we are going to have those local traffic only signs at the front of the intersection. William's asking a similar thing. Will we be able to drive through the Polo Fields to get around the work site? The Polo Fields, none of those streets are included in the detour, the posted detour for this project. But as I was just mentioning, those are public roads. So we know that this is going to be a headache, but we need everybody's cooperation here. Brent, Elena, I know we've talked about this a lot today. Anything else you guys want to add on that topic?
No, I think you've covered it. Yeah, we certainly have a posted detour. We want folks to follow that. And just to elaborate on what you had said earlier about exceptions, the only exceptions that we would have would be emergency vehicles, or if there would be some type of flooding event on that west leg. Other than that, you would have to follow the posted detour.
And it looks like we do have a question from Ron, who's raised his hand again. Ron, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yeah, this is a question for Brent, I guess.
Okay.
So follow up to our earlier discussion about speed calming devices. You made some comment about there being there not being speed humps available in compliance with vehicles, and I'm confused about that because, as I mentioned, Polo Fields Drive already has speed calming devices installed.
Temporary.
No, they're permanent.
Right. So we don't have any approved temporary devices that would be installed. So to have permanent devices installed, you would have to follow our process for having traffic calming devices installed on a roadway, which we would then evaluate outside of the project time frame.
Yeah, the Polo Field Drive, they went through the process, they qualify for humps, and it was installed. And if it's desirable for your street, it can be done after construction is completed. Unfortunately, we can't collect during construction and based off, so it would need to be normal traffic, later. and there's a process to qualify for that. We have information available, but it needs to be like normal traffic, the speeds, the volume we'll look at, and road qualifies, and that's the process.
Okay, thanks, guys. All right, so I think we've made our way through almost all the questions in chat. We did have a question just about the detour one more time, so I'm going to show this map. I did just share a link in the chat again to that project page that I shared, that we demonstrated earlier in the meeting, but you can find this detour map there. You can find, I'll put the meeting slides, we'll do the meeting recording from today in the next day or two up on that website as well. And then you can also subscribe to receive project updates via email right at that website too. So that's in your chat, but I think William had asked about the detour. So here is the posted detour, or the detour that will be posted for this closure once it happens. So are there any other questions out there? Anybody, if you want to virtually raise your hand, you can do that. Let me get back to that slide. By either dialing *9 if you're joining us from your touch tone phone, or by clicking the participants button at the bottom of your screen and then the raise hand button at the bottom right of your screen, or you can always ask a question in chat. Brent, Elena, it looks like we've gotten through all of our questions. You guys have anything you'd like to add for the good of the order here?
No, I appreciate everybody attending. These meetings have gone well for us in this format, and we appreciate everybody attending. Again, we just want to stress that the closure, we really encourage, or we require that no one enter that closure, whether you're a pedestrian or a motorist, unless you are an emergency vehicle or that there's some other authorization that we have. It really protects our workers and the site itself. We had issues like Emily said in 2020, and we just can't stress it enough that those closures, this is a closed project.
Thanks, Brent. It looks like we do have another question here from Harvey. Harvey, you should be able to unmute yourself.
In chat, I asked how we sign up for tomorrow's meeting on paving Zeeb Road.
Oh, thank you. Great segue. Sorry, I didn't see that. Here we've got the information on the project meeting, Harvey. You're going to use the same link that you used to join this meeting. It's just tomorrow at 11 a.m. instead of today. So you can find that right there on the page, and it's just the same link that you used today. Thank you. I'm sorry I missed your question in chat. Elena, anything else you'd like to add?
No, I got a question about the kind of St. Paul Fields traffic. I think, Jason, I think we talked about enough. If you have any further questions, just feel free to reach out to, discuss if you have any other questions about Polo Fields traffic during construction. But yes, thank you for joining, and definitely we're excited for this project. We will try to complete it as, in a timely manner, and we don't want any delays due to any damaged concrete, anything like that, as everyone emphasized.
Great, thanks, Elena. And just to remind everybody, so we have Zeeb Road Phase 2 paving that we're going to start in the summer first. And then once that's done, we'll start this roundabout project as long as the weather cooperates. And so if you are interested, we've got this, as Harvey helped us remember to mention, we've got this meeting tomorrow. Same time as this one, 11 a.m., same link that you used today. And there's also a project page if you want to sign up to receive project updates via email about Zeeb Road Phase 2 as well. There's a project page right on the website, our website, wcroads.org, where you can do that. So we appreciate everybody coming today. We will provide advisories if you subscribe to them. As we get closer, you'll see some tree removals this month, and then no work until, or some utility work too, and then construction will start later this summer. So thanks everybody for coming, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.